Yeah? All right, I'm so happy to be here this morning. Did you know that there's a study out there somewhere that says that 10 out of 10 people that attend and are part of LifePoint are happier? When I find it, I'll share it with you, but I know it's somewhere out there. If you have not smiled this morning, please give someone a smile. It's good to smile. There's a lot of scientific things that happen when you do that make you feel better, but you'll also might feel someone else feel better. And we've been talking about, since last week, about community and the power of community and how God invites us to be part of a bigger group of people to do life together. And we talked about the power, how powerful it is when we have people in our lives that encourage us, motivate us, and help us go through the tough moments, but also to celebrate those mountain high experiences. And you wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be here today. We would not be here today if it wasn't for someone that invited us to be part of a community. We wouldn't. Like, there's something about passionate communities that invite other people to be part of their communities. And healthy communities, they don't grow, they multiply. Because I believe everyone wants to belong to a community. We want to be able to step into a space and know that that's our space, where people will treat us the same way every single time, no matter what's happening in the world or no matter what's happening in our hearts. And we all long to have those special spaces. And sometimes spaces are almost considered sacred spaces because of all the emotional attachments of when community happened. And so we're continuing through this story, and I just want to remind you of the foundations we laid down last week, so I'm going to go over them. And if you want to get more insight into last week, you can just jump on YouTube and watch last week's message on this. But we started with the book called Acts of the Apostles, where it begins to describe this new community. And it says, all believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings and to fellowship, and to sharing meals and prayers. So there's this idea that's being formed, and throughout the year, we're learning two Greek words, right? I'm trying to help us to learn some Greek, so we've learned two words. The first word we learned was, I feel so happy, ecclesia, right? That ecclesia, I'm not gonna have you explain what that is, because I'm gonna put it on the board just as a refresher, okay? The first word was ecclesia, and we talked about how God works through the ecclesia, which is a word that was later translated into church. But in the essence, ecclesia is who we are. We are the ecclesia, right? The pastor's the ecclesia, the leadership's the ecclesia, the ministries are the ecclesia. We are the ecclesia. We are called out to live on what? On mission. We have a mission. Right? That's what we're part of the ecclesia. God calls us to be part of a bigger group of people that we have a purpose, we have a mission to accomplish. Now, the word we learned last week was, somebody help me out. Okay, very good. Koinonia, right? And koinonia differentiates from ecclesia because it's how we live. It's how we live. And so we live doing life together, and we're gospel-centered, and we serve those in and outside of our walls. Okay, that's how we practice out our faith. Now, if I just have ecclesia, but I don't have koinonia, that means that I've allowed ecclesia to become a religion without practice. And a religion without love or faith or practice is void of any truth, even though it has a lot of information. And so our desire at LifePoint is not just to be an ecclesia, not just to understand who we are and what our mission is, because every single church does that. And I know you just a little bit, and I know myself just a little bit. And we're not here today because we want to be like every other church. Or am I wrong? You'll think about that, and you can talk about it at lunch today. We want more than that. We don't want to just be part of that church. No, we want to be part of the church, right? We want to be part of a church that's on mission. But in order to become a church that's on mission, we need to live mission out. So we need to do life together. We need to be gospel-centered, and we need to live to serve those in and outside of our walls. So if you closed your eyes just for a second, could you imagine if Life Point were an ecclesia and a koinonia? Like if we had we have inspiring worship. So if we continue to have inspiring worship and then begin to put this in motion, like who wouldn't want to be part of that? Wouldn't I want my neighbor to be part of that, my coworker to be part of that, my friends to be part of that? It's different. It feels different. As we think about it and view it, it just hits different because we're not used to doing life this way. The way we are kind of programmed to do life is that, I have school over there, I have church over there, I have the store over there, I have work over there, and everything is kind of compartmentalized. Like worlds don't collide, and sometimes we do everything possible for worlds not to collide. We don't want worlds to collide because I don't want people to know about my family at church, because if they knew about my family at church, then they might view me different. I don't want my work people to know about my church people, because if they knew my church people, they might tell my church people how I am at work. You follow me, right? So we kind of separate the worlds, and they're all orbiting perfectly until they're not. But I think God wants more than that, because when these worlds become just one world, there's something powerful that happens. And it's what happened to the early church. They understood that they were never meant to follow Jesus what? Alone. Like Jesus invited them, and now they were called to invite others to follow Jesus. What if our church chose not to follow Jesus alone? What if we were intentional about inviting other people to follow Jesus? Today's text is found in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24, and it says, let us think. This is good, right? This is good advice? Yeah? This is very good advice that teachers want to give. Let us think, right? So let us think of ways to what? Motivate one another. Let us think of ways to motivate one another. When was the last time that you and I thought of ways of motivating someone else? Maybe we spent some time trying to figure out ways to demotivate other people, right? Yeah, like you're doing too much. Let me find ways to tone you down a couple of notches. Like you don't stop moving. You need to stop, right? I'm speaking as an introvert. But maybe extroverts, you're like, why is everyone going so slow? And why doesn't everyone want to be with everyone? And why don't you want to be in open spaces with lots of people, like, right? Like, whoosh. Usually we're trying to not motivate. And sometimes we're finding ways to get back at people, or to be angry, or just to not be involved. But the principle here is to think of ways. In other words, have someone else in mind to try to encourage them and to do good things for them, acts of love and good works, not just for them, but for them to do that with others. One of the best things that you can do to show someone that you care about them, that to know that you love them or that you're invested in them, is to just text them and say, hey, I've been thinking about you, right? How does it feel if someone tells you, hey, I've been thinking about you, or hey, your name's been in my head today? Does that make you feel any different about that person? Does it make you feel any different about the relationship? Like spouses, just text your wife or your husband during the day and say, hey, I'm just thinking about you. I promise you, your relationship will be better. It can't get worse from that point on. And if it does, then we might need to find a different phrase for you, but it's never failed. Never failed. Why? Because people like to know that we're thinking about them. The text is saying, let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. Like these are some good thoughts. These are ways of showing people that we're not interested in what they can do for us, that it's not a transaction of, hey, you need to get this done, but more of saying, hey, I love you so much that I want you to be a better human being. And I know that if I'm able to motivate or inspire you to acts of love and good works, you'll be better for it, and the people around you will be better for it. Could you imagine what would happen in the workspace if you were just willing to motivate one person in the office to do acts of love and good works that day? Or one person in the school, or one person on the field, or one person on the team? What if we just found one way to motivate one person to do this? Would their life be better? Would your life be better? Would the team's or group's life be better if we were passing on this mindset? I believe that when we begin to find ways to motivate others to do good works, of works of love and good works, we create environments of belonging. Will people feel accepted and loved and well received? It's intentional process of living in my relationships. If life is so serious or so cutthroat or so bottom line that I don't have ways or can't find ways to motivate others for these things, then maybe it's not a place worth belonging to. Maybe it's not a good place for them or for me, and something needs to change. But this is at times it's so easy to get caught up in our rhythms, to get caught up in certain cultures, that at times, I gotta be honest, I've said it's impossible to change this culture if it goes so far back and if it goes so deep in people's lives and generations. But what if we were willing to have just a little bit of faith to say, I'm going to try it. I'm going to find one way to motivate someone to grow today, because if they grow, I'll grow. I believe this type of practice doesn't just add, but it multiplies. It's something that's contagious because it creates passion. Just think about right now, if somebody did something nice for you this week, it probably inspired you to do something nice to them back, right? If someone opened the door for you, like I was at a store the other day, and I was about to walk out, and a guy was ahead of me, and he opened the door, and he stood there what it seemed like 30 seconds just waiting for me to get there. And I kind of sped up a little bit because I kind of felt bad that he was waiting for me to open the door, that he was waiting for me to go. And so he opened the door, and I went through, and I was so happy. I smiled, and that's a good thing for me. I smile because I'm sometimes so in my head and thinking about that I think I'm smiling, but I'm not smiling. You've probably seen it. I don't know why you're laughing, but he opened the door, I smile, and then there was another door, and guess what I did? I waited for him to get to that door. No, I'm just kidding. I got to that door, and I opened it for him. Why? Because he had done something good for me that motivated for me to do now something good back to him. It's contagious. He didn't have to tell me, hey, dude, I opened the door for you. You got to get the next one for me. As a matter of fact, he was surprised that I got the next one for him. And that's just opening a door. Like, you can open the door. I can open the door. Imagine what else we could do. Now, sometimes I think we think that we just need to pass on good information. Like, you got fake news, you got bad news, like that's not true. Let me give you the best truth, whether it's God-related or world-related. And sometimes we focus on the information. Now, I can't remember when someone's life was changed just with information. Not that information doesn't matter, not that truth doesn't matter, not that it is not good to have a thorough conversation or open conversation about stuff that's happened or is happening or will happen. Those things should happen, but it's never changed my life. Now, I'm passionate about sports. I've had arguments with my friends about sports, or anyone that wants to have the argument. And I will sit for hours talking about sports because that's something that I feel I know well and I can talk about well. And I'll debate you all day long that Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James. I don't care who you are. I don't care if LeBron James was sitting in front of me, right? Yeah, we got some faithful people at church. Amen. Amen. But that's never changed my perspective or my stance. As a matter of fact, the information has only deepened my stance and has deepened my friend's stance. It hasn't changed us. So why do we focus so much on information if it doesn't change our hearts? You know, information can inform us, and it should, but relationships what? There's two different things that can happen with two different people. If I have someone that comes up to me that I don't know or kind of know and tells me the world's coming to an end tomorrow, I mean, like, yeah, dude, okay, get away, right? Now, if someone that I have a relationship with, someone that I trust, someone that's been there for me, someone that I know how they function and how their mind is wired, if they come up to me and say, hey, Ruben, the world's ending tomorrow, guess who I'm listening to more? Neither. It's like I'm sitting. The second one. Why? Because I have a bond. I have a relationship. There's something happening there that's leading me to information that will change my heart. And it's no different with Jesus. Information is good, and we need to have biblical truths. But if we just have biblical truths and are not building relationships, then we're not really following Jesus. Because Jesus loved people and people loved Jesus back. In other words, Jesus was not interested in transactions or people behavior modifications. He was interested in changing people's hearts. And there's a reason that Jesus calls out these disciples that begin to follow him for 3 years. He breaks bread with them. He hangs out with them. He goes on walks with them. They go on boat rides together. They experience supernatural events. They experience Jesus' teachings. They experience Jesus caring for them. They experience Jesus forgiving them time and time and time and time again. And yes, Jesus was sharing the keys of the kingdom, but what he knew needed to happen first is for their hearts to be transformed. And the same is with us. Maybe you came into the church or the Adventist church because someone shared good information, and I'm not knocking that. We should have good information. But where Jesus wants to take us is not just to have good content, but to have a deep relationship with him. Because at some point in your life and my life, something bad will happen. There will be a crisis or a time of need. There will be a moment where we will let go from our job. There'll be a moment where our kids won't listen to us or our parents won't listen to us. And information will be good, but what will be better in those moments is a relationship with Jesus and a relationship with people. There's moments in our lives where we are hopeless. There's moments in our lives where we feel like giving up. There's moments in our lives where we have doubts and questions. There's moments in our lives where we just feel like being silly and not having to have one thought or care in the world. And it's good to belong in a relationship with God the Father and also be in a relationship with people. Because there's something about relationships that steadies the boat when the winds and waves and water is coming in. There's something about someone giving me a word of encouragement when I've been in a season of darkness and doubt. There's something about being able to celebrate a birthday or a graduation or a milestone, not by myself, but with people that come into my home and bring joy and laughter and hugs and kisses to congratulate. There's nothing like doing life with other people and with God. And I think you know that. And I think your friends know that. And I believe your coworkers know that. As a matter of fact, I believe every human being has a longing to belong, to be a part of, to have someone know when they're missing. Like, let's try something out. Do you know who's missing today at church? Do you know? I don't know everyone that's missing, so okay, I'll be vulnerable and honest. I don't know everyone that's missing because we have about 350 to 400 people that come to church monthly. I try to remember everyone's name. That's where I'm at right now in life, okay? And so I know that weight's not on me because that's impossible. It could be possible, but that would be my full-time job, just to know. But do you know? Do I know who's missing? Do we know one person that's not here today? And let me go further. Have we let them know that their presence is missed? Right? If I'm going to go to the Jaguars game on a Sunday or whenever they play and I go with the same people every time and one person's not there, guess what I'm doing? Text them. Hey, you're not here. Where are you? Are you coming? We do that for everything in life or the things we care about deeply. And sometimes we assume that we don't have to do it at church, but we definitely should do it in ecclesia and koinonia because it's about the community. And we know, you know, that we belong when somebody has recognized that we're not there. So before you leave today, I'm going to challenge you to text or call someone that's not here today and just let them know that they were missed. And you don't have any other reason today, just say the pastor made me do it. Said I won't be able to come back the next Saturday unless I did it. Let's wrap up with our text. And let us not neglect our meeting, what? Together. The purpose that the author here has in writing about meeting together both in ecclesia and koinonia is that there is something dangerous that happens when we isolate ourselves from the community. When we isolate ourselves from our friends or our families, something dangerous happens. You see, when we're all together and we're meeting regularly and coming together as a community, it's more likely than not that you'll feel encouraged, even though you might not feel encouraged, that you won't feel alone. You'll belong part of a bigger group. You'll be motivated to be better and do better. When we're isolated from the group, that's when the devil or the enemy attacks us more than when we're with the group. Because if the enemy knows anything, he knows that when we are isolated or alone, we're more vulnerable to attacks. We're more open to negative ideas or mindsets. We're more open about looking at worst case scenarios and allowing our doubts to flood our minds and our hearts. There's something that happens when we stop meeting together. You might say, well, you're a pastor or you're part of a church. You have to say that. You have to encourage people to come. Look, I don't do this job because I get paid to do this job. I do this job because I am passionate about ecclesia and koinonia. And I know that your life is better and that my life is better when we're meeting together. When we're encouraging each other, when we're saying happy Sabbath to each other, when we're smiling to each other, when we're inviting each other to be part of our lives, we're solidifying our relationships in our faith in a way that we could never do alone. I had a person a long time ago that told me, Pastor, I love the idea of coming to a building on Saturday, but I connect with God better alone and in nature. And I said, so do I. I connect with God better alone and in nature. And I said, well, how are you going to connect with the rest of those that believe in the same God and want to grow in that relationship? And he looked at me and he said, well, that's not my responsibility. And I said, well, this sounds fascinating. Whose is it? He said, I don't know. I said, well, I don't like that God or that pathway or that religion if it just leads you to be alone. Because God is a relationship and he desires to be in a relationship with us. If I want to follow Jesus, I can't do it alone. And when you think you can do it alone, you're falling into the trap of the enemy. The number one way to resist the enemy's attacks is by showing up to church on Saturday. Because you're saying no to isolation and you're saying yes to community. You're saying no to your way of doing life where you get to call the shots and do whatever you want. And you're opening your heart to what God wants to do through the ecclesia and through your life. You are resisting the temptation to do what's natural. And you're stepping into something bigger. C.S. Lewis says it this way. He says the next best thing to being wise oneself is to live in a circle of those who are. Living in a circle of those who are. Life was not meant to do alone or in isolation, but it was meant to be in community. And let me wrap up with what the Bible says. It says, but encourage one another, especially when? Especially now. Especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. Look, as Christians or as Seventh-day Adventist Christians, many times we have the temptation that when we feel the time is near, we focus on information. And it's good to remind people that Jesus will return. It's good that we have signs constantly happening nonstop around the world that remind us that we live in a broken planet and that one day it will come to an end. It's hopeful to know that God has a plan after this. That this is not eternal, that it won't last forever, that someday that he will bring all that's bad to an end. That's fantastic. But that message is not just for me. He wants me to share that message because Jesus didn't just die for those that would be Seventh-day Adventists or those that would be Christians. He died for everyone. And the only way that I can share this message is if I'm willing to encourage other people, especially now. Especially now. I don't know when Jesus is coming back. We don't have the date, but we're constantly reminded that he does have to come and we want him to come. And so especially now, right now, I need to focus on encouraging others to be in a relationship with him and to be in a relationship with others. Belonging isn't just about having a place to sit. It's about having people who know when I'm what? When I'm missing. When I'm missing. And so here's your action for today. You're gonna call, text, or invite someone today. And I'll give you two things you can invite them to. But you're gonna call and text someone that's not here today and say, hey, I missed you. You were on my mind today. Okay, can we do that? You're doubting, but I know, in faith, I prophesy that you will do that. You'll change and make someone's life today. Second thing that you can do, there's two things to invite people to. Life groups are starting up in September. The sign up link went live this morning. So I'm gonna put a QR code on the screen right now. You can just scan that QR code. If you already scanned it, then you should have gotten an email this morning with information about life groups. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I gotta confess, I got 2 minutes. I'm gonna confess something. Can I do that? God has put this desire and this passion in our heart for several years now that we should have koinonia at our church. I just didn't know how it would happen. And I'm the type of person that I need to see the blueprint with all the details. And then God needs to tell me it will work before I do it. And so God has been working on me. He said, you don't need all of that. You don't need half of that. You just need to trust me. And so we've been on a journey of learning to trust him. And so we started with a small group and then we went to a leadership group and then we began to roll it out to you all. And when we sent out an invite to see who was interested in leading or helping assist a life group, we had close to 20 people that responded. 20 people, right? We can put our hands together for that. 20 people. Now, in my human way of thinking, I'm like, hey, if we have 4 groups, that's a win. That's a win. Just 4 groups. Like next year we can multiply, let's start small. So we started meeting with that group of people that were interested in leading out, and things started coming together to the point that when we launched our webpage last night and this morning of the life group we have 9 life groups that will be open and willing to do koinonia together. 9. And so here's the missing piece. You know what the missing piece is? You. We can have 9 life groups with 9 leaders and 9 co-leaders. That's fantastic. Now, they're not gonna do life groups alone. They need you and you need them. They need you and you need them. So if you haven't signed up, this is the way that you sign up. You can see the life groups we have. We have a teens life group. We have a young adult life group. We have a couple of adult life groups. We have one life group that's gonna focus more on couples that have babies or toddlers. We have another life group that's gonna be for couples. I might be forgetting something, but we have 9. And that's an opportunity for you not only to be a part of it, but for you to invite someone. So can you imagine what your life would look like if your relationship with him was deepened and your relationship with others was expanded? May God bless you.